Board members, we're on our agenda. We're getting our updates, and we have actionable items with Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. So we're in. I've got two different lists. I've got, I think maybe the one that you have on yours. I just want to make sure I call out the right number here. Yep. Item 3. So first up, we'll invite Carl Empey, Finance Director, to go over our fiscal year 21 financial statement.
We actually do not have the financial statements yet. We're like your office. We're just currently closing that out. We will have them for next month. As we are compiling them right now, it looks like we had a good fiscal year. Looks like we will continue to be fiscally solvent, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Okay, so as soon as it's closed out, if we can get those submitted, maybe we'll just get them out to board members earlier instead of waiting for our next meeting.
Okay, be happy to.
Because I think this is maybe 2 months in a row that weren't we closing out, not two meetings in a row?
Yes, we didn't have our June financial report because we were waiting. In the state finance and the accounting is they have period 13. So you got your 12 calendar months and then the 13th period, which is to pay for all the expenses incurred prior to the end of June 30th. So that's what we were waiting for, and we just have that closed out, and now we'll start compiling the financials.
All right, thank you. Any questions from board members? Do you have any other updates, Carl?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next up is an actionable item, which is a negotiated agreement. Superintendent, you want to take point on that, or do you have staff?
No, I'd be happy to. USDB has a negotiated agreement with the USDB Teachers Association, Educators Association. It's called USDBEA because we didn't have enough of those kind of acronyms in our lexicon. But anyway, we sit down with them every 2 years and review the agreement. I think we have it a little bit easier than most school districts because they generally negotiate each year, and kind of their main negotiation is teacher compensation. We avoid a lot of that because our teacher compensation is dictated by state code, fortunately, and the increases they get every year are based on a weighted annual salary average across the state. So our teachers are on a 1-year delay on getting that percentage of an increase, but it's really good. Board member Hanson asked me a couple of questions and asked me if I would share with the board the answers to the great questions that he had as he reviewed the agreement. One of them, he said, it looks like your younger, newer teachers get a significant increase, up to like almost 17% in some instances. You'll notice the teachers at the later end of the salary scale get a much smaller. Our weighted annual salary adjustment this year was 6.7. That is applied to the median lane of all. We have a one lane, I'm sorry, the median step. We have a 1-lane salary schedule, and we apply that to the median so that earlier teachers move up more quickly in their compensation at the beginning of their careers. And that was negotiated about 4 years ago when we made some significant revisions to the negotiated agreement. The other item he noticed that he asked me to mention was, what was it, Board Member Hanson? It slipped my mind, the second one. I had it right there. Oh, that's right. There was an item that was added this year at the request of the association that said infractions based on the telematics process would not be used in a teacher's evaluation, an educator evaluation. And that's because we had to put these telematics things because we use state fleet vehicles on our cars, and sometimes they get dinged for not putting the seatbelt on before they get out of the parking lot, or speeding, or other things. But we agreed to that, but that doesn't mean it will not affect their jobs. It's just moved it into the conduct category for a teacher instead of into the performance, because it has nothing to do with their teaching performance. And so that was a good question too.
Member Cannon?
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. This USDBEA, do they elect leadership, and do teachers pay a fee to belong to the organization?
They do. It's It's a subsidiary of UEA. And we have an item in our negotiated agreement that says if a majority of teachers do not belong to the association, then they don't represent them. And we have barely over 50% every time, it seems like. And so, but it's fine. We have a good process and we interact really well with them. The two associate superintendents have both been members of the USDBEA as they came through the teaching ranks at USDB. And so they could probably answer questions better than I could about the association.
Did you have a follow-up, Board Member Cannon?
I'm just wondering if they pay fee, what's the fee and who's the elected leadership?
About $600 a year.
Okay.
Any other, I'm not seeing any questions. I would be seeking a motion that the board approve the 2021-23 USDBEA negotiated agreement.
A motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
Board Member Hanson, a second. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, the motion before the board is that the board approve the 2021-23 USDBEA negotiated agreement. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting was unanimous. Okay, next we have, and this is another actionable item. It's the name of the St. George USDB campus. Associate Superintendent Michelle Tanner, you taking point on this? Okay.
This should be a fun one. So we are growing, and we're putting a portable, as Superintendent Coleman has told you, down in St. George area. The idea is that expanding to be a school. And we have, when deaf schools get together, they like to name their schools after someone that was significant in their community. And so the community members in St. George, the deaf community members in St. George has chosen James Randalls. He was a man who was instrumental in getting the first deaf branch down there for their church. And then he was also instrumental in getting the deaf center down there, advocating that there be interpreters at meetings. He also was instrumental in getting interpreters in classrooms instead of signing aids. That's very different. And was a gracious man who apparently went into nursing homes and found some deaf people are sometimes put in nursing homes, and he would find them and go visit them and take them places. Was a gracious man. He passed away in 2019, and they'd love to name the school after him in honor of his memory, if you would approve.
Questions? Member Cannon?
I just would like to make a motion that we approve the USDB St. George campus name.
Want to speak to the motion?
No.
Discussion to the motion. Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve the recommended name for the USDB St. George campus. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting is unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, next is an additional actionable item, which Superintendent Coleman, do you want to introduce the opportunity before the board on the bylaws?
Yes, thank you. I mentioned this last month and told you I'd just bring back a document with the wording in it. From every time we have terms expire for members of our advisory council, we do a lot of work to try to recruit new people, and we hunt them out of the rocks and the fields and everywhere we can find. But in our requirements, we have very specific sort of roles that are filled and qualifications so that advisory council represents every community that is a stakeholder as far as advisory council goes. And so occasionally, this has happened several times while I've been at USDB, we just can't fill a seat. And we have willing people, and we have a couple seats that are general, anyone who's interested in USDB. But then the others are like an individual who's deaf, an individual who's blind. We usually have one who's deaf from the ASL world, one from the listening and spoken language or the oral tradition. And so we have blind, we have individuals or parents of individuals who are deaf-blind, and so forth. Anyway, we're in this situation again where we have one of these positions we can't fill and we can't find anyone to fill, but we have a great member of the advisory council who's willing to sign up again for another term. It's just that his allotment of terms has expired. And so we are suggesting this language that in the event that we cannot find someone who's qualified after, doing all the due diligence we do, that if a current board member is willing to serve an additional term, that the board could appoint them.
Superintendent, we're going to have to change just what the proposed change put up on the screen so the public can
Okay.
see that.
It's also in your packet there, too.
What's in our pack, it's in the back of it.
Yeah.
Not sure if all the public can see, and we've had a chance to.
So I'll just state, the language that I added is, with the exception, well, here's the original language. The term of appointment for each member shall be 2 years, and members may serve no more than 3 consecutive terms. We're requesting to add the language, with the exception of a member who is willing to serve an additional term if a qualified replacement cannot be found. So the request is for you to
Yeah,
approve that.
Board Member
language.
Cannon?
I read through your bylaws, and so my question isn't really to your proposed amendment, which I understand. But in Article 2, Section 5, it says that the board will get input on the superintendent's performance. And the chair, then Article 5, Section 2, the chair assures recommendations get to the board. I don't recall, and maybe leadership can correct me on this, but I don't recall when we do our evaluations having gotten input from the Advisory Council of USDB. And I think that's what this is saying, correct?
That's what that says. yes.
That's what that's- So I would just like to put a bug in the ear of our leadership that when evaluations for the superintendent come up, that we make a point of obtaining that from the advisory council, just as a request. Thank you.
So is there any other questions on what's being, on the proposed amendment? Board Member Hymus?
Superintendent, can I just ask, and you may have said this before, how do you get the word out to be on this council?
Oh, we do everything we can. We work through consumer groups for the blind and the deaf, and we work through the divisions of services for the blind and visually impaired, division of services for the deaf and hard of hearing. The 2 associate superintendents send the word out through all of their networks. My secretary puts public announcements into those community newsletters and things. We call individuals that we know of. We do everything we can possibly think of when it's those. The thing is that these positions are very narrow, and so you just don't have a lot of population. But associate superintendents, have I left anything out that we try to do? Yeah.
Do you have a follow-up, Board Member Hymus?
No, but I'm willing to make a motion.
What's that?
I'm willing to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that the board that the board approve the recommended changes in the USDB Advisory Council bylaws.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and second. Do you want to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Any discussion? Board Member Lear?
Yeah, I just wondered if you have this problem consistently, and it sounds like you're waffling a little bit about that. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Would you consider rethinking or proposing to revise your advisory council so that you'd have a little more flexibility in choosing membership?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just thinking that you might think about that idea, because I understand why you want narrow positions filled. That representation seems important, but it also seems like sort of wasted effort if you're constantly begging people to serve when you've got other people who would like to serve and they just don't fit that narrow category. So I just encourage you to look at your overall composition and see if you could broaden that and then not spend your time listening to your advisory council and not looking for membership.
Yes. Yes.
Suggestion.
Yeah, we're open to suggestions. these bylaws came from what was in the state code and was recently just transferred to board policy, so, yeah. Michelle?
Any other discussion? Yes.
Just with this particular position, as many of you have seen, sometimes we have different communities within the deaf school. We have a strong group that's ASL English and a strong group that's LSL. So we ensure that they constantly have a voice on our advisory council, both groups, so that one group is not being overshadowed by the other group. This is one of those positions that if we didn't have this, our listening and spoken language representation would be gone, and therefore they wouldn't have a voice at the table. So that's why there's a few positions like this that we feel are really integral, that we have both of their voices. So that's why these ones have been developed the way they have.
Okay. I'm not seeing any further discussion. The motion before the board is that the board approves the recommended changes to the USDB Advisory Council bylaws. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting is unanimous. Superintendent's report?
Thank you. This is our last item, and there are about 4 items here. First of all, I mentioned last month that I would return to you with the exact numbers of our media coverage report last year. We got those in. We had 5,129,000 readers and viewers at a value of $334,159 of earned media. I thought that was just awesome. We like to be able to quantify everything when we can. Our facilities update, several facilities. Number one, we're remodeling the small gym at our Jean Massou School on our Salt Lake campus. It is about a third of the way done, and they are promising us it will be done before school starts. So we'll see. If it is, it's the only thing this year that will be done on time. Just saying. Our St. George portable will be moved next week. It's about 3 weeks behind on the move because as they extracted the portable that the state gave us from the current place, they found a double roof that they had to remove. They had to crane it out, not tow it out like they originally thought. So anyway, it's proceeding, and we have a brand-new facilities director who I'll be introducing to you in your next meeting. He's doing a great job. And anyway, the Washington School District in St. George is working with us. They're aware of it. They are also in the same boat where labor and supply chain issues make everything delayed, and so we're all in this together. And next week it will actually be there on site, and hopefully it'll be ready by, what was the projected date? Do you remember? Mid-September. Our Mill Creek portable here in Salt Lake City, where we are on the Granite School District's Mill Creek Elementary campus, that is a portable that's being built from the ground up, and that has been dragged out all summer because of supply chain delays. It is finally, the construction has started at their facility, and the move and the setup and utilities and everything being finished, looks like it will be the end of September that's ready. Both of the elementary schools adjacent to these portables that we have have really been accommodating. They've given us space in their buildings to use temporarily, so it'll all work out, but it's a little messy this year. And we've gone through it ourselves. There's just literally nothing we could have done to move up the timelines as much as we tried to plan, and normally we execute everything in the summer that we need to. This summer was not, it was due to outside influences. Next item, I wanted to make you aware that next week on August 10th, we have our new employee orientation, and on August 11th, we have our Opening Institute Day. And we're doing that, we had an overwhelming response that people really liked the way we did it last year because we were planning how to do things remotely and so forth. So they will each of our educators will be gathered together in their divisions, but not all in one place like we used to in the olden days 2 years ago. But so they will be gathered together. We will do as a superintendency, video interaction with them in the morning for our main messages. Then we will go on the road and go visit them individually as they are meeting with their divisions under the direction of each of their directors. So that's exciting. That's on August 11th, next Thursday. Next month, I will also be introducing several new employees, our facilities director and our director and assistant director at the Jean Massou School here in Salt Lake. And that is my superintendent's report this month, Mr. Chair.
Questions from or comments from board members? Vice Chair Davis?
I was just wondering, since you were doing that online, your opening messages and rah-rah orientation part. I mean, I attended that in person once and really, I found it delightful. And I will be at a remote campground, so I would not be able to use the link if you send it. But if any of you are interested in watching it, you might want to reach out to Superintendent Coleman and see if he'll send the link to you.
Yeah, let us know. We'll include you in the Zoom link for sure.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other comments. All right, we do have one more order of business before we excuse the superintendent. And within USDB, within the school, they recognize they recognize their employees on years of service. And so it is not but it is my pleasure to recognize and congratulate Superintendent Joel Coleman and also express our gratitude for his 10 years of service for the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. It does not feel like 10 years. It just seems like you just barely got in there. So we want to present. He also gets this nice certificate. So thank you. Speech, or are you done speaking?
Well,
Turn that on.
I will clarify one thing. I didn't know this was going to happen today, but my HR director, when we were going through our awards for our own employees, he said that. I said, I think there's a mistake. And he said, the state counts your employment with the state. So this includes my 2 years as a board member for USDB, as a member of this body, and my 8 years as the superintendent. So
Well, that explains.
how the state
that's
counts it.
probably how it explains. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. So thank you.
thank you.
Well, excuse USD, you're welcome to stay throughout our meeting, but also know you got business to take care of. So thank you.